so when you take this piece, this is about being able to do a couple of different things. Number one, it's about understanding how seam allowances are working as you're sewing. And number two, it's about how to make a nice straight curve and continue sewing, how to make a corner, sorry, not curve. So the first thing you do is you look for these notches and you're thinking to yourself, okay, these two are gonna sew together like this. Oh, wait a minute, they don't match. But they do actually match. They match like this, right? So I go sew, 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 stop, clip the corner, turn, sew, 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 stop, clip the corner, turn, and then they match. So that when I flip it over, it's going to look like, excuse me, almost. It's going to look like this when it's finished. Okay, so this is quite difficult to do. Now before I start sewing it, I'm going to help you to understand some of the concept of what is going on. When we make a pattern, we start off with what's called a plan. So you trace out the basic shape you want. And then if you want to make like a fancy line, like for example, this line there, you're going to draw the line and then you trace one piece and you trace the other piece. From there, you trace them separately. And then after that, you add seam allowance. So now we have this piece is the same as this one, but with a seam allowance. And this piece, the same as this one, but with a seam allowance. And here's where it starts to happen that they don't match. Now why don't they match? Because actually, we are matching the inside line. See, if I superimpose one over top of the other, then they're matching. But of course I can't sew it like that. I have to sew it with right sides together. So these are opposite corners. I go down, hit this corner, turn, hit this corner, turn, right? So does everybody understand that? Okay, it's a good concept to think about when you're sewing. When we get to the curved one, it's similar, but a little bit different. Okay, so first of all, I look for the notches. You can see that I have one notch here. These two guys are matching, and then I have another notch over here. These two guys are matching. So that means I'll flip this one over, and I'm going to draw a seam allowance on here. Now the seam allowance drawing is just for the demo. When you go in the real world in the factory, of course, you're not going to sit here and draw seam allowances on, but just to help you along your way. So I start off here. Looks a little crooked. The cutting is a little crooked here. Don't look at that. I'm making an adjustment for bad cutting. So then I need to, whoops, one stitch too far. I need to fall exactly on that point. So even a hand wheel, just to make sure that I land exactly in that point. So as I land exactly in that point, then I'm going to grab my little scissors, which have disappeared. No, those are paper. It's useless. Anybody seen my small scissors? In order to release it so that I can turn the corner, I'm going to go lift my foot and clip right up to about 1 millimeter or 2 just before there, just like we did when we did the bias tape. And then what that does is that releases it so that I can turn the corner. So now I'm going to just carry on. This looks totally crooked to me.
happens with cutting through so many layers.
Yes, it does. You are right. But you got to make sure that this corner and this corner match. So when I'm stitching, they match exactly on that point, so that when I turn, it's going to be straight. And I'm just going to trim this off. And I land exactly on that point. And now I have to cut the bottom one, right? So if you think about it, always cut the inside corner. So the first one will be the outside and the next one will be the inside. So I clip up to the needle and then that releases the fabric so I can turn once again and carry on stitching straight to the end. So now I have a look at my corners. There should be no puckers or anything like that in it. So it doesn't matter whether you fold them, all the seam allowance to this side or all the seam allowance to this side, but they have to go all the same direction. So let's say I'm going to push mine this way. When I push mine this way, I wind up with a little extra ear, which I'm just going to cut off flush like this. Over here, I'm not going to cut anything because what I want to do is like driving along a road, I want to make sure that I have seam allowance equal all the way underneath the road, okay? If I cut this one off, what happens is, over here, I have a bump in the road, like a ditch. So I leave that one on there. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do a 0.1 top stitch. And I just use my fingers to press the seam open. Voila. And then I overlock around.